Morning, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters and the Pathfinder School, and I'm back down here at the Pathfinder Outdoor Classroom here in Southeast Ohio. We teach lots and lots of classes here in Southeast Ohio, from basic, intermediate, and advanced survival to basic and more advanced land navigation, medicinal edible plants, ropes and rigging, and bushcraft 101. Lots of classes you can choose from under the training tab at selfrelianceoutfitters.com. What I'd like to talk to you about today is kits and leveling kits, and a little bit about kit mentality. I used to do a lot of videos on kit mentality, and those videos get a lot of views, and they seem to have a lot of interest. I've done a lot of videos lately, at least 4 or 5, on micro kits and smaller kits, and I generally get the questions about what about this or what about that was covered in another kit somewhere else, and people didn't realize it because they didn't see the video, or they hadn't seen a video in the past, or I possibly hadn't covered it yet. So what I thought I would do today is talk to you a little bit about the relationship between kits and how they're developed, how I choose to develop my kits. And what I do may not be what's best for you, and that's why everyone has to develop their own kit. And I can only give you ideas of how I go about developing mine. So what I generally do is, lots of my kits have redundancies within the separate kits or separate micro kits. But there are very few redundancies that do not directly affect one of the main survival priorities. So when we look at the 5 survival priorities, not to be confused with the 5 C's of survivability, although they all directly relate to one another, that's the way the system is developed. You have self-aid, cover to include the clothing on your back, fire, water, signaling, and navigation. Those 5 things can be addressed with redundancies within the kit. But each kit should be kind of a standalone from the other in certain aspects. Now, every kit will enhance the next level kit. The other thing about your kits is that they're going to increase in value or increase in comfort level as you go up. So if I take my pocket kit, for instance, which is my EDS, what I call my everyday system, okay? And I put these things in my pocket, and not to confuse EDC with EDS. When I look at EDC, what that is my father walking to the dresser or the bureau, throws a pocket knife, some change in his pocket, puts his keys and wallet in his pocket, puts his belt on, puts his watch on, heads out the door. That's his everyday carry, okay? An everyday system is something that's built to enhance the next level of kit. So for me, my everyday system is what's in my pockets and what's on my belt. We've talked about that in other videos, and I'll put a photograph of that kit laying here on the table. And that will enhance the next level of kit. And that's what's important about this, is one goes with the other, but it can be standalone. So if I'm wearing the correct clothing and I have these things in my pockets and on my person, I should be able to, if I get stuck in an emergency without anything else, be able to survive with those things, provided that I'm dressed properly for conditions. And I've said that over and over in videos, that you shouldn't walk out into an environment that you're not prepared to spend the night in with the clothing on your back, if needs be, assuming that you can do other things like making fire, which is where that kit base comes from and part of your EDS system. That includes multiple ways to start fire, okay, on your person all the time. Now, obviously, I'm not going to walk off into the woods with nothing but my EDS as far as what's on my body, because the next level of that kit becomes this canteen kit. We've discussed this before in video as well. This kit enhances the next level of kit, and between this and what I have on me all the time already, I can pretty much do everything I need to do except build a proper shelter. Building a proper shelter is the next level, okay? But again, if I'm wearing the proper clothing, I should be able to suck it up one night, build fire. I can now disinfect water and collect groundwater resources with this kit. I now have more powerful navigation means with this kit, and I now have a headlight with this kit. So I've enhanced the kit that I'm carrying by just adding this simple pouch, okay? If I were to go off on a scout away from camp or something like that, I can take this with me and feel fairly secure in the fact that I'm going to be okay if an emergency happens, all right? So now you can see that we've greatly enhanced our kit just by the simple addition of that canteen pouch when we walk away from camp. If we want to add some type of temporary sheltering to that kit, then we go to the next level, which are scouting kit or a hunting bag that we talked about the other day, which is a simple day pack that's got implements in it now to build a temporary emergency shelter. So the main additions that you would see to a scouting level kit like this that would enhance what we already have is, number one, you have another layer inside here, okay? Number two, you have a simple shelter system of a poncho and poles. You have a sit pad, which doesn't take up very much room in this pack. And by itself, it's not a comfortable sleep pad, but it is large enough to cover your core from your neck to your waist if you had to lay your back on this to help protect your body's core temperature. It also can be sat on in a hunting scenario or anything like that to, again, keeping you from contact with the ground. So it's enhancement to your system. And then you've got a saw added to this kit. It's a smaller saw. It's a gone boy. It's not a big boy, but it's a saw. You've got some extra cordage in this kit and another roll of duct tape. And then you also have some extra food enhancements in this kit because you've got some energy bars, snacks, things like that. And then redundancies within the kit, obviously, of a secondary Swiss Army knife, a longer spoon for eating those bag meals, more wipes, more water disinfection, a spare small compass. Again, most of these things that are redundancies fall into that category of those survival priorities, okay? So the last thing in this bag is a 6 mil trash bag tucked into this ruck plate pocket right here. And a 6 mil trash bag gives you further sheltering options. It gives you something you can make a browse bed with temporarily if you needed to, something that you could use to improvise rain gear if you had to, a raised bed if you had to. You have lots and lots of options once you put that 6 mil trash bag in there that you didn't have before. And that's what's important with this, is to understand what to add to a kit and what not to add to a kit. So number one, it can stand alone if it needs to. If I didn't have the other things and all I had was this kit, could it stand alone? Yes, it certainly could, because it does have a container in it as well that I can disinfect water with or boil water over the fire if needs be and cook in. So it can be a standalone kit if it needs to be, but when it's enhanced by those other kits, it's even better, okay? So could I leave the canteen kit behind and carry this? Sure I could, because I can still navigate, I can still make shelter, I can still start fire. All those elements are still here and with what's on my body. This kit's just the next level up. If I think I'm going to go out hunting for a while, something may happen, I may get stuck out there and into the evening or something like that, then I would take this kit. The other thing to remember with this kit is this is kind of what I would consider the minimum of the in, on, under proper shelter system. You are going to sleep inside your clothes under a tarp and on top of a shard, basically, of folding mat that's just big enough for your core. So this is like the least I would try to get away with. And I could use that whoopee in there as a blanket if I needed to, or I could just sleep in it completely and help protect my core in totality by trapping heat. Now, once you get beyond that level and you go to the next level of kit, or like a level 4, you're talking about a full-blown backpack, 35 to 40 liters, that's going to hold exactly the contents we discussed in that video on the 4-day instructor kit for an intermediate class. And this is the same pack out load exactly. Again, I can switch this canteen back and forth depending on how I want to do it with the canteen that's in that pouch, whether I want a stainless steel canteen or something that I can filter water with. I have enhanced tools. I have enhanced shelter in the fact that I have, not only do I have an underquilt, overquilt, and a hammock, I also have a big tarp, all right? But increasing that load, increasing the amount of food, increasing my ability to cook, increasing my comfort level comes at a cost of weight. We talked about this pack weighs about 26 pounds, I believe it was. And once you add water and food to that, you're gonna go a little bit over that. But you have everything you need here for quite a bit longer in the woods than just an overnighter if needs be. And your total kit has now been enhanced. You no longer need the day pack, but you may still want the canteen kit. And that's kind of where things go in and out. If I'm just going on a short hunting trip, I may take the day pack. But if I'm going to go camp purposely, I'm taking this kit. And that's kind of where things change is, do I plan to camp or do I not plan to camp? And that's the difference between emergency kits and non-emergency kits. So what you have to remember with this is that The difference between an emergency kit is basically your day pack, where you've got a scanty shelter, but it's enough if needs be. Or you don't have any shelter system at all, and the clothing on your back is supposed to be enough if needs be, to a full-on camping pack. So for an emergency, depending on my skill level, the day pack is going to be the minimum. The canteen kit and the day pack is even better. My EDS system, along with those two things, allows me to do a lot if I need to. Until I decide I'm going to camp, for sure, then I'm going to go to the level 4 system, and that kit will enhance all of the 5 survival priorities in one way or another, okay? And that's really the key to this kit mentality thing, is build from one to the next, to the next, to the next, and then decide what you need as the situation dictates. I see lots and lots of videos, and I've done a couple myself, you know, on get home bag, bug out bag, this bag, that bag. To me, they're really a lot one and the same, okay? Because if I'm going to go out for a day scout or a hike, I may only take what's on my body and a canteen kit, knowing that I'm dressed for conditions. If I think there's a chance that I may get stuck out there for some reason or may not get back that night, or I'm in an unfamiliar territory where I want to make sure that my kit's enhanced a little bit, then I'm going to go to the day pack situation, okay? But if I'm planning to camp, I'm going to forgo the day pack, go with the canteen kit, add the backpack full of stuff that weighs 26, 27 pounds, and I'm planning to camp at that point. And I think that's where the misunderstanding comes from a lot of times, where people say, well, you're missing this, you're missing that. A good example of that would be the hygiene kit. People are like, oh, I'd have tweezers in there, I'd have nail clippers in there. I have an SAK in my pocket every single day with scissors, tweezers, and a toothpick. And they never leave my pocket. So I don't need them as redundancies within my hygiene kit, because it doesn't fall under those 5 survival priorities. However, I have a lighter in my pocket, a lighter in my canteen kit, a lighter in my day pack, and a lighter in my rucksack or my backpack for camping. So if I double up, I'm doubling up, but I'm doubling up on a survival priority, not something that doesn't need to be redundant. And that's really the whole key to the system right there. And then understanding your personal skill level and how well you can operate as a woodsman without certain things off the landscape. And then you can get away with less. It's just like at classes when we talk about building fire. I tell students, I want you to get a tinder bundle this big to create your bird nest out of and your tinder material for starting fire. Could I get away with something like this? I probably could, but I know that I can. I don't know that you can. So I want to teach you the maximum effort to get the best results every time. And then you can decide for yourself, as your skill level increases, how much you can decrease things or what you can get away with. That's not exactly perfect, but you can make do with it. All right, guys, listen, I appreciate your views and I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business. All of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I hope you join us out here at the Pathfinder School Worldwide in Southeast Ohio for a class very soon. You can check us out under the training tab at selfrelianceoutfitters.com. Thanks, guys.